Sorry about that. I'm trying to get Trungpa Rinpoche's picture in there, but there he is. So good morning, everybody. So good to be in Sesshin on this Wednesday. I've been forgetting what date it is. So before we begin, well, actually part of my presentation is some Chinese acupressure exercises to kind of do some things for us. And I learned these. We had a wonderful poetry and meditation workshop with Anne Eringhouse, and she's a body worker. And we started off with meditation and then these Chinese acupressure exercises to kind of, well, you know, Chinese acupuncture works on meridians and the flow of energy through the meridians. And meridians are, they kind of help our organs. Well, they're connected to our organs for the health of our organs. So energy needs to be flowing for health. So these are some exercises she did. I don't know if they're in the right order, but let's start at the top of our head. The top of our head, I want you to press down kind of at sort of like at a midpoint. You kind of feel it, you know, kind of feels maybe a little sore. That's a good place. So, and then you're supposed to keep holding the pressure till you feel a kind of pulsing. And when you feel the pulsing, the energy is dissipating and spreading. And if you don't feel it, it's okay. So a good amount of pressure. And if you don't feel it, it's all right. So it's kind of opening up, kind of letting the energy flow. All right, and now you have glasses, you can take them off. This is the gallbladder meridian. So we're going to go on the side of your eye socket. There's a little indentation, if you feel that, the opposite side of your hand. And then you want to trace it, kind of a nice steady pressure, behind your ear, down your neck, and then down your arm and out through the ring finger. You're just kind of snapping it out the ring finger. You're kind of clearing some energy there. And so let's do that again. Here. And then behind the ear is nice to kind of break up energy there, behind the ear, just by rubbing, and then down the neck. This is another part, you know, that gets a little bit tight. Press that. And then when you come to the outside of your arm, here you're breaking up energy, just kind of rubbing hard. And then, you know, even chopping it up, chopping up the energy, she said. And then out with the finger. And then the third time, it's a light touch, just a light touch going here, just tracing lightly and out to the ring finger. Let's try it on the other side. Okay, finish with that. So again, feel that indentation and kind of a nice pressure behind the ear, down the neck, shoulder, down the side of the arm and out through the ring finger. There's that little kind of snapping there. Okay, let's do that again. Again, rubbing the energy behind the ear, down the neck, and here. That's where it collects, evidently. So you're just chopping it up here and letting it flow finger. And then a light touch, that last one. Oh, opposite, opposite, opposite. Yes, okay. Behind the ear, behind the ear, behind the ear. There you go. Down your shoulder. Okay, so the other thing is when you stand up, and so everybody can stand up, and put your arms down at the side of your thighs. Where your finger ends, right there is a point. And you just want to press on it. It might feel a little sore, actually. Just kind of hold the pressure there. This is what she calls the trash point. A lot of energy collects here, and this is a good way to empty the trash by holding it tight or even rubbing it, right? It kind of hurts your IT band, right? And then let go. Okay, so that's a good one, emptying the trash. And then if you can do this one, I have my foot up. And right between the big toe and the second toe, there's a little notch here, maybe about a 1/4 inch, that you want to just press on. This is another, I think it might be, I don't know what point that is. So just kind of press it, and it probably hurts, right? And then again, see if you can feel when it starts to pulse. So the energy then wouldn't be clumped up, but then it would start to dissipate. Same thing for the other. Okay, you can keep holding it if you want. So I met Anne Ehringhaus at Auschwitz, at the very first Auschwitz bearing witness retreat that the Zen peacemakers organized. This was Bernie Glassman, Eve Marco, and Bernie's second wife, Sandra Jishu Holmes. And that was about 25 years ago. And going to Auschwitz was quite an experience, as you can imagine. And Shikan was talking about fear yesterday, and I'm also talking about it today using Trungpa Rinpoche's book, Smile at Fear. So I think up until then, this was like the early 90s, I guess, I think that I have really lived my life trying to avoid fear, avoid fearful situations. I think it's a natural thing to do. And so when I first heard Roshi was training with Bernie, finishing up part of his studies with Bernie, and he came back and he said, you know, Bernie's doing this bearing witness retreat at Auschwitz, and I'm going. And I thought, well, I'm not. I'm not going there. Who would want to go there where they murdered 6 million people, Jews, intellectuals, homosexuals, anybody who was different, gypsies? Who would want to go there? Not me. There must be Well, there is millions of spirits there who must be pretty pissed off, to say the least. And then, but Roshi was going, and I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I'm really scared, and I really do not want to go. And so maybe I have something to learn from this. So kind of reluctantly, he's going, I'd have someone to go with. I went, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to go too. And so I went. I think part of it was also raising some money to get there, from Hawaii. That was a big trip. So when Shikan asked us yesterday to really imagine, yourself in a fearful situation, I found that very difficult, actually, to kind of, he had a very visceral example of his child, right, almost getting run over, and that was really with him. But, I couldn't, it was hard for me to think of a moment where I was that scared. And then I remembered Auschwitz, as I was writing this talk, because I was really scared when I went over there, the whole trip over there, especially the last leg in Poland. We were on a train, and these conductors that seemed like guards to me, I felt like I was on the train, to Auschwitz. And then when we got there, we were supposed to stay in the hospital that they had turned into a hotel. And I was thinking, oh my God, we're sleeping in the hospital where they did who knows what kind of experiments on people there. But there we were. So I was really, especially the first night, I was really, really frightened, really scared. And in my head, I was like, what did I come here to learn? That's what I was thinking, like, why am I here? And the first word that popped into my head was forgiveness. And I was like, forgiveness? I have no idea what that means here. How could anybody forgive in a place like this? So, so the first thing about Auschwitz was fear, was working with fear, being in a situation that you really would prefer you were not in that situation. And that's where I met Anne Eringhouse. She was there also. And one night, we somehow got to talking, and I found out she did Reiki, and I did Reiki, and we said, how about if we give each other Reiki in the room in the hospital, the former hospital. So we did that one night, and that was very, very healing. So I want to also start with this beautiful quote by Rilke. Our deepest fears are like dragons guarding our deepest treasure. Our deepest fears are like dragons guarding our deepest treasure. So, I'm very grateful to Trungpa Rinpoche, and it was Roshi who introduced me to Trungpa Rinpoche when we got back together again. We had, separated after college, going together just for a year, and then we started dating again, a long distance relationship. And I asked him, what would be a good book to get started, knowing nothing? I wasn't meditating yet, really. But I knew that, he had been a Zen priest, and though he was not practicing at the time, he was an artist. So he told me about the sacred path of the warrior, and that was the first book that I began reading, Trungpa Rinpoche's book. And here are some quotes I want to just start with. The essence of warriorship, or the essence of human bravery, is refusing to give up on anyone or anything. That is the essence of human bravery. Not giving up on anyone or anything, including yourself. Another quote that I really liked. A great deal of the chaos in the world occurs because people don't appreciate themselves. A great deal of the chaos in the world occurs because people don't appreciate themselves. And the final quote. When we are afraid of ourselves and afraid of the seeming threats the world presents, then we become extremely selfish. We want to build our own little nests, our own cocoons, so that we can live by ourselves in a secure way. A bit of a delusion here. Right, let me say that again. When we are afraid of ourselves and afraid of the seeming threats the world presents, then we become extremely selfish. We want to build our own little nests, our own cocoon, so that we can live by ourselves in a secure way. So we have to smile at fear. The true heart of bravery, awakening the true heart of bravery, smiling at fear. So we can do that. So this book is in 3 parts. The first part is the way of the warrior. My father mentioned one time that there were samurai in our family lineage. Thank you, Liz. I saw that. Okay, do tell me when it happens again, all right? Good. So, becoming a warrior and facing yourself is a question of honesty rather than condemning yourself. So that's interesting right there, because I think we're all kind of good at condemning ourselves. Am I wrong here? Okay, all right. So instead of that, it's just facing yourself and seeing what's there, really. And that takes seeing takes a little bit of practice. And guess what is the best way to practice doing that? Exactly what we're doing, Julie. Sitting. That's right. What we are doing now is the best way to study ourselves and what we're and really start to see who we really are. Now that's interesting, right? So Trungpa is saying, okay, the idea is simply to face the facts. Just the facts, ma'am, right? Honesty plays a very important part. Just see the simple, straightforward truth about yourself. And when you begin to be honest with yourself, you develop a genuine gut level of truth. And that is not necessarily cutting yourself down. So he says, so first look at yourself, but don't condemn yourself. That's a practice right there. Or maybe it's not a practice, well, it is kind of a new practice you're starting, especially if you've been habitually cutting yourself down, right? This is a new way of looking at yourself. He says it's important to be matter of fact on the spot, on the spot. That's this whole practice we're doing of shamatha, this one-pointed attention. It is training you to be on the spot. And yeah, your attention will waver, and then you go, oh, attention waver, okay, I'm back. I am really with my breath, whether I'm counting it or whether I'm just watching it. Oh, there I go again. Okay, there's a thought. Okay, coming back again. That's coming back, is that being on the spot, in the present, here, moment, and not in the future, not in the past. You're here, right here. So facing yourself is the first aspect of being an honest person, facing yourself. Your honesty allows you to see your goodness. In Tibetan, warrior is pawo, pawo. Pa means brave, and wo makes it a person who is brave. So warriorship here refers to fundamental bravery and fearlessness. So the general goal of warriorship is to have no fear, but the ground of warriorship is fear itself. So in order to be fearless, first you have to find out what fear is. So Trungpa Rinpoche is saying, you are a warrior if you are interested in, one, hearing the truth, the Dharma, learning from the Dharma, finding out about yourself, and practicing meditation. You are a warrior if you want these things. And fear is being embarrassed or ashamed of yourself. We talk about shame in the second class of the Foundations of Mindfulness series. That's a big one for a lot of us, shame. I mean, I remember when Roshi first brought it up, first started teaching the class, I'm like, you're talking about shame? Why? That was so funny, right? When I think of it now, I was like, why would you want to talk about shame? And I realized, oh my God, I must have a big thing about shame. I had such a huge reaction. So anyway, being embarrassed or ashamed of yourself, this is fear, based on fear. Nervousness, anxiety, the sense of inadequacy goes along with shame. and a feeling that you just might not be able to deal with the challenges that life throws at you every day, or that you might feel that life is just too overwhelming. So fear has its hold on you if you're feeling any of this grip. And, we do a lot of things to avoid fear. Do a lot of things to avoid it. Right? There's one. Maybe even yoga is a way. Maybe but people use meditation also to calm down, which is absolutely But the thing about meditation is it's really also a way to face the fear. And see it and go, okay, we know things are not permanent, things are transitory, it's not going to last forever, I can hang in there with it. But I was that person, I was trying to avoid fear at all costs. And even now, I still comes up for me. But now I can, because of my practice, I can go, ooh, there it is. Right? It's very subtle because I can divert my attention just like that I don't even know it came up. And then it's like, I don't even know what's going on there. Really going on. So that's wonderful. The wonderful thing about this one-pointed attention. You are paying attention on purpose to what's going on here as well as around you. You can feel, ooh, there's a squeezing going on in my stomach or my heart right here. Wow, can I just hang out just for a moment? And I think that's a very powerful thing to do. It just kind of stops the feeling from really growing. Or it may grow and you're just hanging out with it. And noticing the story also, right? You're paying attention on purpose to what's going on for you. What's the story you're telling yourself? Is it true? Just asking those questions are very helpful. And there was a question yesterday about where does fear come from, right? And Trungpa Rinpoche says it comes from basic bewilderment. You just don't know what's going on here. You're in a gap somewhere. And he also said it comes from being unable to harmonize or synchronize mind and body. Right? How many of us really are in touch with our bodies? You go there, it's like too overwhelming. It just, I can't stay here. I prefer this. It's safer. I know this. I'm going to hang here. Trungpa Rinpoche says, when you don't feel grounded or properly seated in your world, you can't relate to your experience or to the rest of the world. You feel like a caricature of yourself, almost like a primordial idiot or a clown. In that situation, it's very difficult to relate to the rest of the world. He doesn't say how to harmonize or synchronize mind and body. But I think with the practice of meditation, you're slowing down enough to start to notice what's going on. Kind of, the neural pathways are all over your body, and if they don't get used, they kind of, like anything else, if you don't use it, you lose it. So just by the process of noticing, you're starting the pathways firing again. And then maybe you start taking better care of yourself, your whole self. I think meditation is great for the mind, taking care of your mind. And then your brain will say, okay, my body likes exercise. I gotta go do some exercise, right? My body wants to sleep right now. It's really tired. Can I take a nap? I want to eat good food. I'm tired of my steaks and my bacon. I want to eat something, maybe a little bit more bulky. So I think that it starts to happen when you get kind of, relaxed in your mind, your body can get relaxed as well. And I think you've got that basic sanity and intelligence to know what to do with yourself. All right, some obstacles to fearlessness. Obstacles. So Rinpoche says, main obstacle to fearlessness is the habitual patterns that allow us to deceive ourselves fully. That is to say, we have a fear of facing ourselves. He says, experiencing the innermost core of our existence is embarrassing to a lot of us. And many people try to find a spiritual path where they don't have to face themselves, but they can actually liberate themselves. They're trying to liberate themselves from themselves. So that's not going to work. It's a path with a dead end. So he says we have to be honest with ourselves, see our real shit, basically. The most undesirable parts. And that is the foundation of warriorship and the basis of conquering fear. We have to face our fear, we have to look at it, we have to study it, work with it, and practice meditation with it. It says if you put 100% of your heart into facing yourself, then you connect with this unconditional goodness that is always there. He says, when you are genuine in the fullest sense, you do not need the conditional judgments of good or bad, but you actually are good rather than you become good. You are good. And that's important. If we face ourselves properly, Trungpa Rinpoche is saying, if we face ourselves properly, fully, then we find that something else exists there beyond facing ourselves. Something exists in us that is basically awake as opposed to asleep. We find something intrinsically cheerful and fundamentally pride-worthy. That is to say, we don't have to con ourselves. We discover genuine 100% gold. He says not even 24 karat, it's 100% gold. According to the Buddhist tradition, that is discovering our Buddha nature. Calls it, in Sanskrit, it's called Tathagata Garbha. Tathagata Garbha. which means that the essence of the Tathagatas, the Buddhas who have already gone beyond, exists in us. And our ancestors, everything exists in us, all the Buddhas, too. We are fundamentally awake. We ourselves are already good. It's not just a potential, it's more than potential. Of course, we will have hesitation again and again in believing that. You might think this is goodness is just an old myth, another trick to cheer us up. But no, it is real and good. Buddha nature exists in us, and because of that, we are here. Your basic Buddha nature brought you here. So, the only way to relax is to open your heart. And our practice is all about that, opening hearts. Then you have a chance to see who you are. Fearlessness is powerful, but it also contains gentleness and constant loneliness and sadness. Right? Have you ever been in a room with all your friends and family, and still you feel a little bit lonely and sad? So, wisdom and consideration for others are also part of fearlessness, and you become more available and kinder to others, more considerate of others and more touched by them. The more fearlessness evolves, that much more available and vulnerable you become. That is why sadness and gentleness are part of fearlessness. What? We become more vulnerable when we become fearless? How does that work? He also talks about fearlessness as having a light touch as well, and a sense of humor. I think we really see that during Sesshin. We laugh a lot here. It was really funny because yesterday, um, Zach put in our new, if you go out in the backyard, you see our new pet memorial. And he works with Brent Showalter, who designed it. And so, lunch was happening, so I invited him to join us for lunch. So Zach is this real working class guy, really great sense of humor too. So he comes in, of course, we do our gatha, meal gatha, so we're chanting, and he's probably thinking, okay, what have I gotten myself into? And then, we serve ourselves, and he's sitting.
We lost your video, Sensei, or your audio. No
Yeah, he
sound.
says at one point, is that good? He says at one point, are you all vegetarians here? He's kind of loud. Yeah, I think he's a little, feeling out of place there. And, anyway, so Roshi says something like, okay, you stayed for lunch, now you have to stay the whole 7 days. We're all laughing. Anyway, he was laughing too, so.
He was experiencing fear.
He was experiencing some fear. He'd have to stay here now that he ate lunch with us. So, you know, just to acknowledge this basic goodness that is part of each of us, you know, that takes maybe a little time to get used to the fact that we might have this basic goodness part of us. And so it's necessary to kind of go beyond our doubts about this and really adopt the attitude that we are worthy people. We are worthy. We are good enough. We are good enough. And we have something going for us. We are not totally a pile of shit. Okay? And Rinpoche says there's only one way to do this, to be with yourself for a long period of time. And this doesn't mean, you know, to be with yourself watching Netflix or to be with yourself, you know, reading a magazine, kind of, you know, filling up the time. No, it's like in meditation, like this Sesshin, what we're doing right now, is a really, really good way. He says the only way to see this basic goodness. So this practice of mindfulness is really important. It's helping us to really be on the spot, to see the world as it really is and not as we would like it to be, to kind of be here. And he also talks about meditation as being a touch and go. So there's not a heavy hand, it's a light touch in meditation. You know, when you're sitting, you know you're sitting, you know you're breathing, you know you exist, you know you're here. That's the touch part. The go part is that you're here, but you don't hang on to it. You don't sustain your sense of being, but you let go of even that. So that's an interesting, I love that. So, of course, we have to come to the ego, right? Because the ego is that troublemaker in us that always creates a lot of fear. That ego that we have built up all through all of our lives. And it's working very hard to secure itself because fundamentally it knows it's not real, but it really doesn't want to believe that. So we build a lot of walls, and if anybody gets too close, we can get really, we think we're attacked and we're going to, be very aggressive in our attitude. So again, Rinpoche says, the only way to develop a balanced state of being is not to try to get rid of the threats that are coming at you, right? But to understand them and to make use of ego's game, which leads to ahimsa or nonviolence. So it's really using nonviolence to work with all the threats that are coming at you. That's the warrior's way. And to develop this ahimsa, you have to see that the problems are not really trying to destroy you. right? We usually try to immediately get rid of our problems, but the important thing is to learn to be friendly with our problems, this whole smile at fear. Or in the, when I was teaching the Paramitas course, the Zen Life series, smile at obstacles that arise. And there's going to be a lot of obstacles. This is the practice of a bodhisattva, an enlightened being, right? Any kind of obstacles. And usually it's even subtle things. Like I remember I found myself complaining to myself when I was studying hard for these Zen Life series. I was like, why do I have to study so hard? Why? And so I noticed I was doing that, and I paused just for a second and smiled. Oh, smiling at that complaining right now. And that is very powerful. It was like, oh, okay, I'm complaining. Okay, I don't have to keep doing it. You know, I'll just go on with go back to studying. I don't have to make a bigger thing than it really is. So that's nonviolence. It's also a kind of loving kindness to your threats. You're sending loving kindness by just bearing witness, being with. So this was a practice I asked people to do during our Zen Life series. Whenever an obstacle or a challenge or a threat, or you find yourself complaining about something, pause, even for the briefest millisecond, breathe and smile. Smile at that. So all of these problems, right, are generated from this teaching we have on duality or separateness, that we are separate from. So at a certain point, you develop a genuine aspiration to get rid of that wall you've built around the ego. Right, so the imbalance, what's causing the imbalance are those three poisons: ignorance, hatred, and greed. So ignorance is interesting. You know, it means ignoring what is, ignoring the present. And it ignores what is because your mind is occupied with other, experiences from the past or the present. Or the future, past or the future, right? So you're never able to be now. So that's ignorance. You're ignoring what is now. Another problem is aggression. Aggression, if you're aggressive in terms of your emotions or your sentiments, Rinpoche says you're not developing your strength at all, but you're just trying to defend yourself in a rather feeble and clumsy way. In the state of aggression, you're constantly trying to fight with someone else. Your mind is so occupied with your opponent that you are continuously defensive, trying to defend yourself in the fear that something will happen to you. Therefore, you're not able to see any positive alternative. And he also says not being a pacifist and not fighting at all. So we have to find a middle ground where one engages the energy fully, but without aggression. Okay, I've been talking a lot here. So any questions or any discussion right now? I think that might be the end of my talk. Part 2 will be coming on Friday. So anyway, are there any Are there any thoughts or questions or anything about what I've covered so far?
Yes, I have some, but I didn't put my hand in chat. Should I do
Okay,
that?
Annie, go ahead, Annie.
Oh, okay. Oh, thousand thank yous and bows, Jude. That was so wonderful. And next time I open it, I'm really hungry and I try and open a jar and I can't open it and I throw the papers out and I can't find the right tool. I'm gonna laugh and I'll remember what you said.
That's a good one, Annie.
It seems like today life is just a series of laughters for me. You know, and also the idea that I love the idea that we connect with our bodies, because even though today we have such a intellectual conceptual focus with this digital age, we have to be aware of our bodies as real source of wisdom, and it's like not trusting that in the midst of this whole influx of digital mania. Thank you. Thanks, June.
Thank you, Annie. Right. Roshi calls it, it's a nonverbal communication from our body. So we're just not used to that kind of messaging coming to us. But we pay attention, just keep paying attention. It's good. And I really liked, that's why I started with Anne's Chinese acupuncture things that we did, because it's kind of getting us in touch with our bodies and because if you're blocks in your body, that can affect your mind as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And one thing Anne said at the end, she said, she really likes deep sharing. And I think those exercises that she did actually really opened us up to go deeper in our bodies, mind, the whole thing. And it was a very deep kind of a workshop of writing, and yeah, it was good. I just want to say that this Sesshin, I look forward to Sesshins because it is such a wonderful way, as Rinpoche said, to touch in and to begin to see our basic goodness that is here. Because most of the time we're kind of flooded with our own self-talk that we're not worthy enough, we're not good enough. So it's so important, I think, to kind of let that all fall, let go of, and begin to see this sparkling nature we have.
One time I did moaning with fear, and moaning up here, like a pleasure moan, because I was stuck. I had like a PTSD triggered flash, like a lot of fear happening. Like I was like out of my mind with fear. So I did instinctively. I did like some fake pleasure moaning, and it seemed to calm me down like a little. Not calm me down, but like I wonder if I was trying to trick my amygdala or something. I don't know. But we ended up sitting in the grass and doing some meditation, which that was good too.
Great. Great, sitting on the earth, how great is that for grounding? Yeah, yeah. I think when you do that pause and, maybe you're instinctively moaning, But just that pause, that meta awareness of what you're going through, I think is the start of kind of working with what's up for you. And certainly, if you go with the story that's in your head, right? If you keep staying in the story, it's going to prolong that stress response versus letting the story go, staying with the body, you're bearing witness, you're facing the fear in your body. I think that would just shorten that whatever your amygdala is doing with all the hormones that it's releasing, right? So it takes time to get those to subside. Yes.
Thank you for the talk, first of all. Your discussion about fearlessness sort of brought to mind benzodiazepines for me, which are like a drug where an overdose can cause people to lose like fear and inhibitions and do all sorts of crazy things and usually wake up in jail or sometimes. So I was wondering, like, could that be a consequence of the fearlessness that you talk about? If not, like, what is the difference, I guess?
Oh, wow, that's an interesting question. So if you're using drugs, you really don't know what you're doing, right? And so you end up in jail. You can end up in jail because you're on this drug, this high, or whatever. I'm not really familiar with benzodiazepines. What is that called? Is that called speed or?
Xanax.
Oh, it's Xanax. Okay. So I'm not familiar with Xanax or anything like that. But if it loses, okay, so you're losing inhibitions, right, with that. So in awareness practice, right, we're not trying to get rid of our fear. I mean, we're working with it. We wish we didn't have the fear, but it's there. So we're working with it, and we're not we're not trying to shut it off, right? So that we're working with it so that it can transform into fearlessness.
Yeah, I think it's an important question. I think in general, you could drink alcohol, you could take drugs and lose your inhibitions, and you could appear to be very free and spontaneous. But I think this is very different. In terms of Zen practice and mindfulness, we're actually developing an awareness that's very disciplined, and then the freedom comes from that discipline. It doesn't come from just kind of acting out and doing whatever you want. There's a kind of groundedness and spontaneity. That's very different, I think, than taking drugs in general. I don't know about that specific drug, but I've taken enough drugs to know that there's a difference between this kind of practice
And
For years.
and
And for me, it's similar to alcohol. But in your talk, you said that part of fearlessness is concern for others. So that would be part of it too. It's like if you're really fearless, concern about other people too.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, did you hear Shikan's question? No, they didn't hear your question. Oh. So basically what he was saying was, you know, you hear the word warrior and you're like waiting for the aggression part, right? But in Trungpa Rinpoche's definition of a warrior, it's the ability to work with that energy of aggression and transforming it into a skillful use of that energy that is, I mean, you know, vulnerable. To be vulnerable takes a lot of energy too, right? It might even be harder than just going out and, right? Right. So it's really, it's so many wonderful ways to look at working with fear, the true, awakening the true heart of bravery. And working with our habitual ways of thinking, that's, you know, that takes bravery too, to try to think differently. That's, you're in the gap there, and, you know, being in the gap is not a comfortable place for many of us. So it takes courage to be there and see what can, a new possibility that can arise. If you're angry and aggressive, there are no possibilities except only one thing: destroying what's in front of you, right? Right. And another big obstacle to fearlessness that has to be overcome is doubt. And that is doubting your ability to do this, to be this. That is a huge obstacle. So the practice of shamatha, of one point of attention, is helping us with this courage also. And seeing reality as it is. Absolutely, we can doubt, you know, we can doubt things like joining an organization, or, you know, we can doubt, you know, is this food really good, right? But doubting yourself, that is an important obstacle to overcome. Right. You are good and worthy. All right, then, if there are no further questions, let's have lunch, okay? Shikan's cooking today, yes. All right.